On September 6, 2011, news of a robbery at the home of former nominated minister Betty Tett hit the headlines. At around 1 p.m., armed robbers entered the property holding her husband, William Mulready Tett, and their workers at gunpoint. A staff member raised the alarm, prompting a police response. The police ambushed the robbers, killing 2 of them, while one managed to escape. The incident took a bizarre turn when police realized that the couple's adopted son, David William Tett, or Billy as he was often referred to, was behind the violent robbery. But what happened? What could drive someone raised in privilege and wealth to commit such a crime against his own family? In this video, we'll discuss the life and crimes of David William Tett. Billy's life had a tragic beginning. After losing his mother at just 1 year old, he and his 8 siblings were left without parental care. Billy was taken to Mama Fatuma Goodwill Children's Home, where his life took a dramatic turn when his mother's cousin, Betty Tett, and her British husband, William Mulready Tett, adopted him. David's sister, Anita, was adopted by Betty's sister-in-law and moved to London, while the other siblings were taken in by different relatives. Betty Tett is a prominent Kenyan political figure. She served under President Mwai Kibaki as a nominated member of parliament, assistant minister for local government, and assistant minister for housing. She was also active in child welfare and women's parliamentary initiatives. In interviews, Betty spoke fondly of her bond with David, whom she lovingly referred to as Billy. She said that she had raised him as her son and provided him with opportunities even her biological children did not have. However, she struggled to identify when Billy's life took a dark turn. Despite Betty's devotion, Billy's teenage years were turbulent. By the time he was an adult, his relationship with his adoptive parents became strained, and he eventually moved out of their home. On September 6, 2011, at around 1 p.m., David Billy Tett arrived at his adoptive parents' home in Karen with 2 men in a car with Ugandan number plates. Upon arrival, he identified himself to the house help, Christine Nyambura, as the family's last-born by pointing to his photo on the wall. The watchman confirmed his identity, and Christine led the trio into the sitting room while she went to inform Billy's father, William Tett, of his son's arrival. When William arrived, he saw Billy standing while the 2 men were seated. Billy introduced the 2 men as his friends. Then, the father and son stepped outside to talk. William questioned Billy about a 70,000 shilling loan that he had not been paid back. Billy appeared tense. He refused to answer, and the conversation turned into an argument. As they argued outside, one of Billy's accomplices inside the house pulled a knife on Christine and ordered her to lie down. As he was about to stab her, Billy intervened, stopping the attack. Billy then forced his father back into the house, where William saw Christine on the floor. The 2 men assaulted William and tied his hands and legs with masking tape. One held a gun to his head while the other brandished a knife and demanded money while threatening his life. They demanded he give them 1 million shillings and then increased the amount to 10 million shillings. Mr. Tett asked his son why he was robbing him. Billy coldly replied that it was because William had refused to give him land. By sheer coincidence, Betty Tett, who was not at the house, became concerned when her husband and their house help failed to answer her repeated phone calls. Sensing something was wrong, she asked other members of their staff to check on her husband in the house. 2 workers went to the house and knocked on the door. Billy answered but refused to let them see Mr. Tett, claiming he was in a private discussion with his father. Billy then agreed to let them in. However, the two workers were already suspicious and discreetly signaled the gateman, who was a few meters away, that something was wrong. Billy then forcibly dragged the two men into the house and ordered them to join the rest of the hostages. Inside, the two workers saw Mr. Tett tied up on the floor. Acting quickly, one of them covertly pressed a security alarm hidden in his pocket. Meanwhile, Billy continued demanding money from his father and ordered him to hand over the keys to his bedroom and safe. Billy and his accomplices also robbed the staff of their phones and valuables. At the same time, Betty contacted the police, reporting her suspicion of a crime at her house. Shortly after, Billy fled the scene in the car he had arrived in, leaving his accomplices behind. Realizing that they were abandoned, the two men ran after him, shouting for him to stop. At that moment, police arrived and upon seeing the men armed with a knife and gun, opened fire, killing them both. Although the police saw Billy's car speeding away, they couldn't stop it, but managed to note down the Ugandan number plate. The police secured the scene and recovered a knife, gun, and 5 phones from the deceased gunmen. Mr. Tett reported that he had been robbed of 1,000 shillings, his wallet, bank cards, and 2 phones, all valued at 157,000 shillings. The following day, Billy Tett walked into Langata police station with an interesting story. He told police that on the previous day, while traveling to Ngara, he was stopped at Bama Market by 3 men who called him by name. They then kidnapped him at gunpoint and forced him to lead them to his parents' home. Upon arrival, the house help let them in, and when his father confronted him about money, one of the men brandished a pistol and demanded that they all lie down. The men then robbed his father and the staff. Billy further claimed that one of the kidnappers forced him back into the car and locked him in the boot. He said he had gunshots before the vehicle started moving and later came to a stop. He remained in the boot until he was rescued by Good Samaritans. After the ordeal, Billy said he returned home to rest before deciding to report the incident to the police the next day. He also reported that he was robbed of various items during the supposed kidnapping. Unfortunately for Billy, the police didn't buy his story and he was promptly arrested. The police searched him and found him in possession of a wallet, 2 mobile phones, an Equity Bank ATM card, and an Uchumi Club card in the name of William Mulready Tett. David Billy Tett was arrested and charged with 3 counts of robbery with violence. William and Betty Tett asked the court to deny their adopted son bail, claiming that Billy knew every detail of their family and there were high chances that he may get in the way and interfere with witnesses and evidence. At trial, Billy stuck to his story, claiming that he was innocent and a victim of a kidnapping. However, witness testimony poked holes in his defense. Prosecution stated that the incident took place in broad daylight and the witnesses positively identified Billy as one of the robbers. Billy's father and Christine, the house help, both testified that Billy introduced the other robbers as his friends. They also testified that as Billy was running away from the scene, the deceased robbers called him by his name as they were trying to catch up with him and begging him not to leave them. Mr. Tett and his staff told the court that Billy seemed to be the leader of the gang, with Christine recounting how Billy stopped one of the robbers from stabbing her. He was also the one demanding money from his father. The prosecution pointed out that Billy and his father stepped outside the house to talk, giving Billy a chance to inform him that he had been kidnapped and needed assistance, but he failed to do so. It was also revealed in court that when Billy was arrested, he was found in possession of his personal items that he had claimed had been stolen from him when he was kidnapped, proving that he had given false information to police. Billy was found guilty of all 3 counts of robbery with violence. During his sentencing, he pleaded for leniency, saying he was remorseful and wanted to reconcile with his family. However, Nairobi Chief Magistrate Kiarie Waweru ruled that the prosecution had proven beyond reasonable doubt that David Billy Tett was part and parcel of a gang that violently robbed his adoptive father and members of his staff. He dismissed Billy's pleas to be handed a non-custodial sentence, ruling that he participated in the robbery on his own volition.
I therefore sentence the accused to suffer death in count 1 as prescribed by the law.
In 2014, Billy was sentenced to death. Billy Tett would not go down without a fight. He appealed to the High Court, arguing that his arrest, the evidence against him, and his conviction stemmed from a petty family feud. Through his lawyer, Billy claimed that his parents viewed him as the black sheep of the family and were using criminal proceedings as an act of revenge. He also claimed that the Tett's biological children had fabricated the case to block him from inheriting family land. He further argued that the prosecution's witnesses were his parents' employees and family members, making the case biased. Additionally, Billy requested bail, citing his diabetes and the lack of adequate medical facilities in prison. However, the prosecution dismissed his claims of a family feud, stating that evidence showed his adoptive parents had supported him when he was in need. The Director of Public Prosecutions opposed his release, calling him a flight risk due to his conviction for a capital offense carrying a mandatory death sentence. The court had already rejected Billy's defense for lack of credibility, and prosecutors labeled him a pathological liar. Betty and William Tett submitted victim impact statements to the court opposing Billy's release on bail pending his appeal. Billy, who was representing himself in court, argued that the signatures on these statements were forged. In response, Betty and William were summoned to court where they verified the authenticity of the letters. Meanwhile, Billy's biological sister, Anita, who lived in the UK, publicly pleaded with Betty Tett on social media to help secure his release and offered to live and take care of Billy in the UK. Betty responded and said that Anita had not lived with Billy and she did not know much about him or the situation. Although Betty said she had forgiven her adopted son, she did not mention the possibility of her pardoning him and getting him out of jail. In September 2021, Billy was back in court. Following his appeal, he was resentenced to 15 years in prison for 2 counts of robbery with violence. In 2021, Billy Tett was once again in the spotlight after Citizen TV aired an expose titled Kamiti Call Center, which uncovered a mobile phone scam run from Kamiti Maximum Prison. The investigation, led by journalist Lulu Hassan, revealed that inmates, in collusion with prison officials and outside contacts, had swindled millions of shillings from unsuspecting Kenyans through fake job offers, investment schemes, and lottery scams. The report highlighted how scammers used a special mobile phone with a voice-altering feature that allowed them to impersonate men, women, or children. They would send thousands of fraudulent messages, hoping a few victims would fall for the trap. In one case, a Kamiti convict scammed a job seeker out of 800,000 shillings. Billy Tett was filmed in his prison uniform using a fake British accent to lure his victim while falsely claiming to be in Lodwar.
So in Nairobi, I'm actually in a place called Lodwar. In an area, I'm in Lodwar town. You know Lodwar town? Okay, we're actually on the border towards going to southern Sudan. Yeah, how old are you? You're 37. That is very nice. I'm actually 45 years old. So, I'm very, very happy. I thought maybe you're a schoolgirl or something, okay? But I'm happy. I pray to God. I'm a Christian. I've been praying to God, and I'm very happy, darling, all right?
Following the expose, the Kenyan Prison Service issued a statement clarifying that the footage was recorded in 2019. They also stated that Billy, who was allegedly a key player in the scam, had been transferred from Kamiti Maximum Prison to their medium security prison on July 2021 before being released on September 9, 2021. Little is known about Billy's life after his release from prison. However, his actions left his adoptive family shaken, with Betty stating that the whole ordeal was a very painful experience.
We brought him up. We took him when he was very young, could have been 1 year old when his mother died. We brought him up as our own son. We gave him the best education. We gave him everything that we could give in life. My own children did not go to the schools that he went. As a mother, I feel very, very painful. It's very painful for me. But on the other hand, I have also to protect myself and the other children. It cannot be just one way. And he's been threatening from where he is. He's sent people to threaten, we are going to kill you.
As the case was going on.
As the case was going on. You know, he's never been remorseful. And he's sent thugs to come. Sometimes I start to change my route. You know, this is, what is this? And then when we get to the thugs, they say, oh, you see, we are told to do 1, 2, 3 by your so-called son.
Thank you so much for listening and watching until the end. As always, I would like to know your thoughts on this case, so feel free to comment. I'd also like to thank all 6,303 of you for subscribing and interacting with my channel. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. My name is Faith Njoroge and I will see you on the next one. Bye.